off of one blueberry bush, you could probably get 8 by next year, and granted there's fruiting time and everything, but the art of patience, especially in this, in the next 5 years, you could have a field of blueberries. You know what I mean? Like you could 100% do that. It's taking stuff that only requires you reading. That's the only requirement. Like you can pull over on the side of the road when you spot like an elderberry that's on some vacant abandoned property, and you could air layer it, and then you could bring it to your place. You could do that. That's not outside of this realm of possibility. Within 5 years, if you put your effort and you put your nose to that grindstone, you can have a food forest that in the back of your mind will make you feel so alleviated of all of the stress and shit in this world. Because what ends up happening is the primordial instinct that we all have is that if we can't go to that grocery store, what the hell are we going to do?
This is the Farm Hop Life Podcast, a traveling homestead family. I'm Matt DeRozier. On the Farm Hop Life Podcast, we learn what it takes to grow your own food from everyday people. Could be a college student, grows tomatoes and salad greens on their apartment patio, a former VP of marketing for Del Taco now raising cattle in Montana, or someone who hasn't had a homestead in over 10 years. This show is aimed at teaching you what it takes to make homesteading work for you, that we all make mistakes, we all have bad days, but we can reach out and help one another thrive, and giving you the confidence needed to go feed yourself.
You're in Ohio, right?
Yes, I am. Southeast Ohio, right on the butt crack of West Virginia and Ohio.
Nice. So I'm not going to get into your username whatsoever, just Deadeye Two Tongues. People can use their imagination and check out your TikTok if they want to understand what that means.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah, I was a body modification expert for 18 years.
Seriously?
Owned my own tattoo shop. Yeah. Owned my own tattoo shop for 10 of that 18. I was being heavily modified. I think my body is about 70% tattooed. That was the easiest gainful employment that I had for many, many years. But it really was super demanding, and then became kind of hard to do after I got shot.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's that is like the 60-second, hey, that's what that means.
Yeah, the dead eye, and then I have my tongue split. A lot of people think it's because I get questions all the time. They're like, well, do you speak multiple languages? And it's like, well, no, it's a bit more direct than
more literal.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So getting into, man, how do you make the transition from tattoo artist, body modification to like homesteading? Because like I'm flipping through TikTok, right? And I come across you and I'm like, what does this dude have to say? And like, this dude knows like plants. This dude knows homesteading. Are you kidding? And so like instant subscribe. You're like, there's like in 60 seconds, you pack in so much information. It's crazy. It's like a master class.
I appreciate that. And a lot of that was truly because I feel like I need to revitalize a lot of interest in nature because of just how detrimental nature is being treated. And also, finding the evidence within a more hardy, healthier life and existence because of a grounding and closeness to not only like my food, but my water and things like that. And then one of the big things was I wanted to create a video journal, to hand down to my children. I guess one of the most, how do I want to word this? One of the most eye-opening, funny wording things
Singular.
About having about having such a traumatic near-death experience is that I realized that we're incredibly temporary, and I wanted to be able to leave behind something for not only my children but other people's children. Sorry, my rooster's just he's just out there yard pimping, you know. He's, uh, I'm sorry if you could hear him, but I
All
wanted
good.
to leave behind something. I wanted to leave behind something as kind of a video diary, a compilation, like, you know, of kind of my life, because, like, you know, children, as they get older and everything, you know, how it was for me and everything, I became more and more fascinated with my lineage and my upbringing, and exactly what set the roots for my up, you know, how I came out, you know, like I began investigating that. And I found that I have this long history of farmers, coal miners, and people either swinging a mattock in the earth or bringing forth fruit from the earth. And I wanted to start making these video logs and stuff, almost as like a visual and like a audible diary for my children, in case I ever was gone. And then that became kind of like this funny thing. You know, there's almost 400,000 people who are enjoying that right now,
Yeah.
and every day it pushes me more and more to go out and understand the world around me, in an attempt to bring knowledge. You know, I kind of have a little bit of blessing after I was shot. I have, you know, a little bit of money from getting shot that is able to foster some time
Hmm.
to recoup. And then what we've done with our lifestyle and moving into an RV, and everything. So, you know, we're trying to get solar on it. You know, we import all of our water from natural springs. You know, I've limited the amount of money that is required for us to, you know, to get by. So, and all this time, you know, I'm sitting here thinking to myself, you know, if I was just to sit around, on, you know, on my butt and, you know, not make the best absolute use of this time, well, you know, I would not be benefiting like hardly anybody, and I want to benefit everybody with this free time. So a lot of my day to day is going out and trying to find new plants, how they function, if there's insect
Hmm.
life that, you know, like you have milkweed. Like milkweed is so important to monarchs, and, you know, you have wildflowers and things so important to fireflies, and you know, I wanted to start getting it into the very in depth into those things to watch how, when you tend to them, it benefits literally everything around you. And by giving that knowledge to other people, I feel that is the most combative way to, essentially battle industry that doesn't care about our streams, doesn't care about using herbicides, being destructive in their practice. The best way to separate us from these very destructive practices is to make every single person at least wise to like the benefits of these very common plants, these very easy practices. I want to tell people what's in their water, you know, and the impact it has on their brain, you know. And once you get a consciousness going of people who really find that important, which is crazy to see almost 500,000 people who are all on board, you know, that's my biggest accomplishment right now, is because, you know, at the baseline of all of my work on TikTok, I am seeing people implicate these practices and go forward and try to make these things a part of their life. And I can only imagine those monarch butterflies, those fireflies, you know,
Yeah.
the betterment, like the soil getting better, the water getting cleaner, you know, then that's what really drives me.
You had mentioned coming from a line of people, you know, that worked in the earth in some capacity, right? And I think you've
Right.
throughout a couple of your videos, you've mentioned, you know, what you've learned from your grandma. Did you spend a lot of time with your grandma in the garden and stuff?
Well, okay, so I'm a product of Appalachia. And you know, I mean, it's funny. All of the girls on my mother's side of the family, they got the middle name Jean. Every single one of them. You know what I mean? They all had their children very early. You know, 16, 17. You know, and they became early mothers. So inherently, what happens is you have, um, a lot of the, I lived with my grandma summer to summer many years. And I lived with my mother and grandma in my early years. Because I mean, my mom is only 16, 17 years older than me, and to put that in perspective, my youngest brother is 17 years younger than me, so
Mm.
it's, I was, yes, of course, I was around my grandmother very, very often. And that same thing happened multiple generations back. So yeah, I spent an awful lot of time with my grandmother, and my grandmother used earth to deal with a lot of her trauma. She's uh, just, I mean, literally, if she held out her thumb, I would not be surprised if it was radiating bright green. She's one of those people that was way ahead of people on grafting. She understood grafting with no internet, with no capacity to study online. She figured that out a long time ago.
Wow.
She's one of those people. Yeah, she's one of those people that can just clip a blueberry and just pop it into the ground, and next year you will see a thriving blueberry, like right there in that same spot. That's just, that's her. Now she's more of a florist. She loves the flowers. And then that green thumb stretched to my mother, who is an activist and well aware of the destructive and crappy, industrial um, presence that we have, who always wanted to grow as much food as she could for her children. And that all kind of combined together to create me. And they gave that to my brothers and my sisters, who all in one way or another stand up for this planet. um, and yeah, that's my entire upbringing. Like, I'm about to inherit the property that my grandfather, my great great grandfather, built with his bare hands out of rough cut lumber. He was a coal
Wow.
miner. Yeah, it was built in 1938, or maybe sooner. Maybe it was completed in 1938, started in like 1932. But that used to be a 100-acre property with quite a large farm on it. Um, and it's always meant the world to me. So anytime I was sitting in that tattoo chair, um, and really just being a workaholic in one way or another, um, I always wanted to be out doing the nature things. And every time I would take a break, it was to reconnect with nature. But the money was good, and I just found myself kind of enslaved to it. And my family roots were there. They were 100% there. They were connected to the earth. And after all the trauma and everything I went through, I struggled for the longest time trying to find healing. And what it ended up being was I pretty much took a walk one day barefooted and was suddenly woken back up. And because I was trying my hardest to continue tattooing despite memory loss and all sorts of impairments, sleep
Mm.
stuff. And I quit. I had a shop. I told my workers, "Hey, you wanna buy this and keep going?" Like, I found what I need, and I jumped completely headfirst back into it and took the plunge.
Wow.
And it turned me from being a very almost angry with God, like, why me? You know what I mean? Why does this happen?
Sure.
Especially on my story, I talk from time to time about just how crazy it was that I got shot in the first place. And essentially, that's why I'm a giant advocate for mental health now too, because there's a lot of people out there who are struggling and become reckless and endangering to other people. But I gave that part away for just a minute. I can always go back to it. 18 years is a long time to tattoo. And it's like riding a
Long
bike.
time to do anything.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But the connection I felt again was godly, in a sense. I felt the presence of God. within the blades of grass between, the root systems that I had so long wanted to just be in, but I was like, unable to because of the massive workload that I had. And I dove in head first, and I did not look back at all. And I probably the happiest I've ever been right now.
Wow, that's incredible. Congrats on like finding
Yeah.
that. I mean, it's like a long, like messed up journey, right? But you're there.
Oh,
I mean, would it even?
Yeah.
It probably wouldn't feel the same if you didn't have to take the weird journey, right?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And I'm sure we're going to get into the fungi, but what really galvanized it was, I had all this spare time and everything. And so, I started digging my heels back into hunting and everything. And I went out one day, and I had been trying to look for this buck. I could see this buck's footprints, and they were so deep. I mean, it had to be super heavy, big boy. And he was all around the property, and I was looking for him. And I was asking for assistance, almost heavenly, heavenly assistance to get this guy. This guy would bring a lot of meat in. And I was going for my little walk. I was all ready to go. I was using my primitive recurve, and I saw him, there was this big old thicket, and I wasn't about to do what was done to me. I wasn't about to wound the guy and let him go his whole life. You know what I mean? So I
Sure.
just observed it. And I remember I was really present to the presence of God that day. And I was like, okay, so you let me see him. That's great. It's like, I really appreciate that. Maybe tomorrow I'll get him, And I was like, but man, I really wanted to go home with something. And I turned around, and as I was walking out, I saw this big plume of a mushroom sitting on this stump. And the mushroom I recognized, like, because I had cooked with it in culinary school. So whenever before I tattooed, kind of in tandem of when I started tattooing, I was going to college for culinary. Well, there was I recognized it, and I was like, that's a lion's mane mushroom. That was right around the time that I started being a little bit more on the holistic side of things. And I was like, I know that these guys have profound impact, and from reading and all sorts of stuff. And I took it home, and I was like, I wonder what this does medicinally. Well, what was plaguing my life super bad at the time was severe nerve damage. That's what made me stop tattooing, because I got shot right in the throat, which impacted my entire central nervous system, making it to where my hands, which for many, many years were, my bread maker, like I can sculpt, I
Yeah.
can paint, I can play multiple instruments, and it became really, really hard to do a lot of things, and I picked it up, and I remember walking home with it, and I was like, just so happy. And I felt something radiating from it. You know what I mean? Well, I took it home and started studying it, and it's one of the most researched right now mushrooms for exactly what was plaguing me: nerve damage, memory loss, like these. And I started messing with it and being like, oh, well, I'm going to make a tincture out of it and everything. I can tell you that my nerve damage, which was at a 10, is now at a 2 permanently, even if I don't take it. Yeah.
Whoa.
It changed my life completely.
So that was the beginning of the snowball getting into fungi.
The fungi snowball started right there. Now, I've always loved them. I mean, I come from a long line of morel hunters and chanterelle hunters, and actually, I think my first TikTok video was on pheasant back dryad saddle. And I remember just going out into my yard, and everyone was like, bro, you should really start a TikTok. And I remember at the time being like, oh my God, like I ain't one of those guys and everything. And I did a video on that, and it just popped. And I was like, and people were like, dude, I've been posting stuff for months, and I get 12 views. And they're like, you just got 1,000 views on a video. I was like, that's a lot. Now I got one with 17. 1.8 million. It's
Yeah.
crazy. But that's whenever I really, that's what nailed it at home, was that moment with that beautiful little fungi blooming out of that elm, was just sitting there. And I think that was God saying, "Hey, dude, like, you know what you need to do now." And after I started taking it, I started making that for other people who have suffered from traumatic brain injury, strokes, nerve damage, all sorts of things. And I can tell you that I have quite literally watched people go from not being able to hold a spoon to feed themselves to being able to not only feed themselves but drive their cars again, get up and get motivated again. I mean, it's spectacular. And that
That's
mushroom
amazing.
is, yeah, it's an absolutely incredible mushroom, that I keep lock and stocked. And I would probably have a picture of a lion's mane inscribed on my tombstone. You know what I mean? It's that life changing. Yeah.
Yeah. So since we're on the topic, I take mushroom powder. It's like it's Sacred Seven or something like that. It's got like the seven. I can't remember all of them, but lion's mane is definitely in there. And I put it in a protein shake. And I've heard people also like putting it in their coffee. Now I'm always curious, like the delivery method. Like, am I getting the benefits in a powder form in a protein shake, or does it like what's the what's the best way to do that?
Well, I mean, anytime that you have like a tincture is going to be like absorbed quicker. It's going to hit your bloodstream quicker, everything like that. Ingesting them is great. I mean, for your gut biome, especially, like fungi have an incredible impact on your gut biome, and enriching it with all sorts of nutrients and healthy bacterias. Um, like they wear their digestive enzymes on the outside, like we have on the inside. So they are great to ingest. Now, if you want a kind of more, I think the medicinal aspect of it, not gonna suggest that like the way you're taking it is bad in any way. I think that people should take it via tincture and ingestion. You know what I mean? Because
Okay.
it helps like in different ways and methods. But no, honestly, do you feel a change? Is the question? You are taking it.
I guess I'm not sure.
You know,
I'm still refining like no like getting used to like feelings of like, hey man, I feel like crap when I do this, or I feel like crap when I don't do this. Like it's still getting there. Like I was out of town for work and I ate like crap and I felt like crap. So I'm like, can't do that anymore.
yeah, yeah. I am still studying whether or not too. There's is the fruiting body of the fungi more medicinal than the mycelial body of the fungi? Um, that's what I'm wondering now. Anytime that you get a tincture, or a lot of times you are not actually getting the mushroom, the fruited body. You are getting the rye and the mycelial network. Most oftentimes it's rye. Rye berry is kind of the standard for growing mushrooms. But are you getting the mycelial body with a lot of the rye, or are you getting the fruited body? And I'm still looking at that. I have several different tinctures that I've made that are solely from fruited body, and then from the mycelium. You're a lot of times I think that those people don't even fruit it out. They allow it to just become a block of the mycelium, and then they process it from there to make their wares. And it seems like a lot of people do that, and I'm still civilian sciencing my way to understand whether that's a convenience thing, or if that's just better for you and it's been decided. From what it appears to me is that it's more of a convenient thing. You know what I mean? Like, because i I don't want to just like chalk everything full of rye. Rye is not what you're going for whenever you're going for a chaga tincture, or a lion's mane, or a cordyceps tincture. You want the cordyceps. You don't want the rye berry or whatever, or rice. A lot of times it's cordyceps, but you don't want that. And I feel like that's more of the presence whenever you do that. But I'm
Hmm.
also still wondering if you know that's done for a purpose. A lot of this is self practice, you know, and I can tell you that the tinctures that I made that changed my life so much are definitely the fruited body of the mushroom itself and not the mycelia.
That's an interesting note to make. Good thing to keep in the back of your head, like when you're like trying to find a supplier, or if you go to end up like making your own.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah,
um, man, I did not for some reason I did not know that you hunted either. Like that's like, and with a recurve, that's
yeah.
difficulty up to 9.
It's a really nice recurve.
Did you buy it
Yeah.
or build it? Inherit it?
It's no, no, no. It's I got it, I think, at a yard sale. I mean, and
Really?
yeah, it's made from an old fence post. Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Are you
Crazy.
serious?
Yeah.
That's
So
hilarious.
I don't think the guy really knew what he had. All he had to do was put new string on there. And man, I mean, accurate, accurate as all get out. And a lot of that too is, you know, one of the reasons why I haven't really gone on TikTok with archery and everything is I think I shoot weird, but I shoot how I feel good. You know, and I'm afraid people are going to be like, your form. And while they're saying that, I'm
Yeah,
going to go,
they
but this
would.
here tastes good. You know, it's like it doesn't, it's not really messed with me, you know, like I wonder if a lot of the reasons why I shoot the way I do and stuff is because of my eye, you know, and
Valid reason.
how that, yeah, but marksmanship, you know, has always been a thing, which I thought is kind of funny because Deadeye is kind of a note to somebody who can shoot really well, you know, and long before I was missing the eye, I was able to shoot. About the only thing that my accuracy started sucking at was pool. You know, I can no longer really play pool. It's like a combination
Weird.
of yeah, yeah. It's like my uh my nerve damage, you know, for the longest time. And I might be able to be a little better at it, but it's something like that's so shocking. Like when you get up to try to do something you were good at and suddenly you suck again. It takes baby steps getting back to it.
Sure.
You know?
That
But
is
I
so
feel
odd
like
that you're good at archery. Like you got like you came back, right? You came back into archery. But like on pool, it's just like a 2D surface. So like you think like
yeah, it's it's
it'd be
it's the
backwards.
depth perception at that. Yeah, it's something about the depth perception that close. And then also the sensitivity in my hands. Now, I have not tried to play pool in about 6 years. I think the last time I tried to play pool after I was shot, I went to one of my favorite bars with my guitar player and the band I was in forever, and we used to run tables. And I tried playing, and it was like a big bummer, and so I stopped. But you know, but for some reason with shooting, I don't. I think a lot of people have to squint like really hard whenever they're
Hmm.
shooting, and it causes tension in the face. Which when you're shooting, you want to be as still as possible. You know, you want to be as relaxed as possible. I don't have to have any of the closing of the eye or squinting or any, and I feel like
Fair.
that helped me somehow. You know what I mean? But yeah, I've always loved. Dad has built us like throwing knife targets and all sorts of stuff, you know, and I've just always really loved the idea of being able to shoot well. You know, I had BB guns growing up. You know, my dad gave me his like I think it's like 1950 pump air rifle recently. It
That's
hits like a
awesome.
yeah, it hits like a 22. Iron sight, accurate as all get out. It's pretty cool. Yeah,
Dude, that's awesome.
yeah,
So a little bit more about the rest of your property. So like the property that you're on now, like you talked about that the inheritance that's coming, right? By the way, that's fantastic. That history of that house
yeah.
alone would be cool, but the fact that your great great grandfather built that.
Mm-hmm. Well, what we're doing now is I mean, it's a super long story of how we got here, but we ended up being the caretakers of this property that's only 15 minutes away from my property. So this was pre-built with like chicken coops. It had an aviary, pigsties, and everything. So we kind of landed on here out of happenstance, you know, and didn't really, like all last year, because we were nomadic, you know, we live in an RV, we were going to travel, and then the gas prices went through the roof, so we had to kind of find some place to sit for a minute, and we ended up caretaking for this property. And last year we tried growing everything in buckets and everything so we could be mobile if we needed to. We would just load up the RV with all of our buckets and stuff, and we'd go and
Yeah.
everything. But this year, this property that we had been sitting at was actually taken over by an eco conservationist as well, whose dream was to essentially load the property up with all sorts of exactly what I'm doing. You know, so we ended up being able to make use of all the stuff that's here, and kind of, you know, end up showing this guy who wants to do exactly what I'm good at, you know, and we're building him up a food forest and everything, but all the clones and all of the cuttings and things that we're doing, we're taking out to the property I'm inheriting, which isn't far away. So we're using this as our testing ground. You know, this is the measure twice, cut once that we're doing. You know, we get along absolutely great with this fella. His name's Sean. He's got a crazy backstory himself. You know, he's a pretty cool guy. But you know, we're utilizing this because I have my grandparents living out at the property I'm inheriting. You know, my grandparents on my mother's side, which is funny because that house comes from my father's side. So they're living out there. My grandmother has her garden out there, and everything, you know, and they're improving the land however they can. They use it as kind of like they're in their 70s now. You know, they use it as their get up and go and stay healthy. And we're bringing them out blueberry bushes, and we're bringing them out, you know, like cuttings, and we're like, you know, tailoring the property to whenever they get to the point to where they need me to step in and essentially help them for the rest of their life because they're having a hard time. So we're using
Right.
this property to foster that other property, you know, which is bringing hazelnut trees and native flowers, and you know, and all this, which my grandma's already done a ton of. So that property is already really ripe and brimming. And I think within the next 5 years, that's where we're going to move all of our stuff, and we're going to start improving that house, and getting it ready to be inherited by the next grandson.
Dude, that's that's so cool. It's like a great migration of all that you've done.
Yeah. We have kind of a thing in our family, you know. I have all these friends and stuff who are like, oh, my brother lives in Colorado, or oh, my sister moved to California and stuff. It's like too big of a mommy and daddy's boy, homie. Like I cannot go without having that. Like I remember when COVID hit, you know, and you know, I could not hug my mom. I freaked out. I freaked out, dude. Like I need that, you know. Those are my roots, you know. And when you see my stuff and my content, you know how much I literally like dirt worship. You know, like roots, you know, I respect it, and that's my
Sure.
lineage. And so we don't have a tendency to move far away. And I think a big part of that too makes it to where, you know, everybody is tailoring their lives for the benefit of the entire family. We have a very tight knit family, and there's not a lot of us. There's been a lot of betrayal within our family and stuff too that narrowed the circle
Mm.
down even tighter. But you know, as things have gone, you know, our tight little circle is unbreakable. You know, 100% loving, and anytime, you know, that I'm hurt or wounded, or which happens a lot, which happens a lot with my lifestyle. You know, I'm the most accident prone person, but you know, there's always your family there to catch you, and we keep each other young, and we keep each other moving forward at all times, and we're always there. You know, our elders in our family, can rest assured that they're going to be taken care of and cared for. If it would be the highest honor to me to take care of the the elders that gave me my state of mind, my work ethic, my mental state, and what I find important, because those things that they gave me are obviously very important to so many people, and I feel like I couldn't have done it without them. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
a lot of people aspire to go out and achieve, this and that. Like, yeah, I would love to travel. I'd love to like see things, but I can do that in between making sure my family and my loved ones are taken care of first.
Yeah, that's just that time of like closeness, especially with like the older generation, not like your parents, but like your grandparents. Man, like
Yeah.
to just be able to like be around and like hear the stories and get a better sense of what it is that they went through to get to where they are and like what it took.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in our area, poverty is really, really bad. Like, it's super, super bad. Um, it's a lot of these towns and stuff, they started out as these really ripe coal mine towns that were really like brimming with activity and bringing in tons of new people, and there were schools and malls and all sorts of things popping up in these towns, and then the coal mines ran dry, and so they became shanty towns and ghost towns, and I'm surrounded by them. The town I grew up in, Carbondale, now I've heard, I'm not sure the validity, but I heard at one point it was going to be like nominated to be the up and coming capital of Ohio. Now that might just be folklore, which is, quite rampant around here.
Sure.
But there at one point was a mall. There was like all of this brimming, economy going on. And what ends up happening is that all of the coal miners who feel like, well, I'm set, I'm going to be here for a long time. I got this great job coal mining. Well, one day the coal mine dries up. They don't have any money saved. They got a ton of kids, and everything. And then they don't have the ability to migrate and go because they didn't save anything back and everything. So you get these like kind of long histories of families of strife, and then that leads to, illegal practices, a lot of theft, a lot of narcotics, which is just like crazy around here. But my family growing up in this area and stuff. I mean, my great great grandpa Carl. It's funny because I got two great great grandpa Carls, like one on mom's and one on dad's, but he was a moonshiner, and he was an entrepreneur. But I mean, they didn't necessarily succumb to the outcome of getting high on their own supply, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? But they
Yeah.
created it. They were people, who lived through Prohibition and Great Depression and utilized almost, the selling of sin because they had to, because the whole area was rampant with
Right.
that mentality. I mean, and even still to this day, you have a lot of people who feel like the only thing they can do with their life is pretty much work throughout the week in a dangerous job, an underpaid job, and then go and spend all their money getting drunk or high. That's Appalachia in many pockets and hollers of Appalachia. You know what I mean? It's really easy to lose yourself in that kind of piss poor headspace, but it's almost inherent, sure, hereditary. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think there's something to that. Something about the hillbillies, because I'm in Western Montana, right? And
Oh yeah.
but I moved here, so I'm originally from Minnesota, and you can tell.
Are they paying people to go out to Montana? I've heard that. I've
I'm
heard
not
that.
sure about that.
Or
Maybe I missed
I
the
think
boat.
I think I'm thinking of Alaska, like where they, like, essentially
Yes,
it's so unpopulated and they're trying. Yeah, yeah,
kind of.
yeah.
There's certain like things that you gotta certain boxes you gotta check in order to get that money, I think. But
Yeah.
you can tell the people that have lived here their whole lives and like their families have lived here versus like the transplants. So like the transplants, they like, bring their mentality right from like where they're from, like, hardworking, save your money, do this, do that. Like there's an order to things. And the people that have been here for a while and, they didn't really have much. They didn't inherit land because those ones are, uh, those happen, but they're rare because like,
Yeah.
it's pretty easy to jump 10, 20, 40 acres to get some cash and then it's gone. But
Yeah.
yeah, these guys work so hard and then they have almost nothing to show for it.
Yeah. That's brutal. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, I think that causes a lot of mental illness. That's, I see that quite a bit, in my area too. Um, a lot of times, like, your hard work isn't acknowledged, and that's one thing I will say when it comes to homesteading. And I went through your TikTok right before I got on here, and I saw you building rock walls and helping pig farmers and all stuff. You don't need any validation from anybody else after a day like that, because your calloused hands and your broken back, and your hungry stomach is all that
Sure.
you need to feel good about yourself at that point. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and that's one thing I would say to anybody who is planning on getting into homesteading. It's not a fairy tale reality, really. You know what I mean? It's not. A lot of people go, well, I especially love the people who go, oh well, if the end comes, I'm just gonna go to the woods. It's like the woods will eat you.
Mm-hmm.
Will consume you, and it will grow out of you. Like, don't be a fool. Like, this lifestyle really really requires, like, that rooster crows, man. You get up, you know it's reminding you, like, I mean, your list of chores gets bigger with every new uh self-reliant thing that you're going to do. Like, between this year and last year, I think I lost 30 pounds, you know because, well, I was eating better. I've added a lot of eggs to my diet, especially, like, that's one of the best foods ever. you know um but it's also the getting up at 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. It's out. I've already got more stuff done around my house by noon, than I think most people, would be able to really fathom. You know what I
And
mean?
do all weekend. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially whenever you quit your job and make it your job. You know what I mean?
Right.
That 12 dozen eggs that you're selling every week, it helps. It gets your chicken feed back. You have to keep pushing. Like, you have to keep doing that. And as time has gone on, we've got more and more underneath our belt. We're almost to the point to where we're going to be creating our own ryeberry for the mushrooms. We're going to be creating our own. We have our own mealworms for our chickens. We have our own worms to make our earthworm castings. We're getting to this point where things are going to break, and we're getting it as automated as we can. But that automation isn't from some industrialized chrome machine. Like, you just have to put yourself into the mindset that you are that machine. And I
Right.
find it to be, after a long day's work like that, when I'm watching my chickens eat home sourced, good protein rich, food, and then I watch my eggs become healthier and better, and then because of that, I become healthier and better. You start realizing it's this mechanical system almost, without the machinery. It's just based off your intellect, your capacity to do better, and the constant push to essentially enrich. Not only, like, I love whenever I give my eggs to my friends, because they have no idea what a good egg tastes like. They have no clue, but then when they eat that egg, like, they're like, I feel like I have more energy. Like, I, it's it's so rewarding, but it starts out and it is so cumbersome at first. Your whole life changes. If you don't feed these animals die. Like, like you have to wrap your mind around how much you are fragmenting your energy and your soul. Like my lady wants to go to Colorado, in the next 2 weeks. I'd love to go to Colorado. I would 100% love the content in Colorado. I would love the travel to Colorado, especially the 19-hour drive. Some people would look at that and go, "Oh my God!" I would be pulling over every time I saw something I didn't see. I'd be taking pictures. I'd be sitting there noting stuff down. But the fact of the matter is, we chose a lifestyle that has to have somebody here capable of taking care of these animals and taking care of this garden, and and taking care of our fungi. I mean, and that's a specialized thing that is only really doable whenever you have done it. So I can't just, hey, will you come watch my mushrooms? Will you, for this week, like, come? And someone's like, dude, I don't know anything about this. So it puts you in a conundrum, but at the same time, it's like, I feel like where I'm going and where my path is taking me, that I will be able to go to Colorado, sooner than later, because of, really putting my nose to the grindstone. And, I feel like my son, who's almost 13, he's slowly chipping away. I think he'll be able to really come full circle and be able to help me within the next couple of years and everything, so you just got to make some sacrifices here and there. But homesteading is 100% and a completely different life. You don't just walk out and get blueberries from, or vegetables from your garden. You put your blood, sweat, and tears into that garden. You worked hard as all get out to make sure that Bill Gates, I'll just say it, has never modified your food, or people have never modified your food or made that food unhealthy for you. You know what I mean? Like that's 100% a big factor in the back of my brain is there are people out there who do not care about you. They care about convenience. They care about making a dollar off of you, and they don't care that there's pesticides that are eating your brain and your kid's brain. I mean, it's bad. It's bad. But this lifestyle, once you get there, calling me. Sorry, someone was calling me. Once you get there, you start to realize, oh crap, I haven't had chemically created food and pesticides in my stuff for like a year now. And you like completely realize, like, you're more sentient than ever, you're more connected than ever, and that fuels you more, gets you further down your road, lets you have more energy, more capacity of free thinking, and it builds a whole different atmosphere. And I think that when you first get into homesteading, you don't know that. All you see is the hard work, the being wore out, tired, sweaty, and you're like, what the hell? I just planted all these tomatoes and they all died. Well, next year you're gonna talk about soil amendment. You're gonna have a pH tester. You're gonna have a soil tester. You're gonna understand why those died, because you put all that hard work into it. And if you didn't give up, which I think I've seen a lot of people do, if you didn't give up,
yeah.
you're going to bring yourself closer to understanding that failure, instead of just taking the failure and thinking that you're incapable, which I think breaks a lot of people, but you got to stick with it.
Gotta stick with it. So, in figuring out the failures, what's worked for you?
What worked for me?
Yeah, like
I can tell
things
you
that
that.
worked, like, this, like, I don't know, swales worked here, or swales didn't work here, or like this guild worked for me, or it didn't work for me, that kind of thing.
You're talking like methods of growing,
Yeah.
or like, is that, well, the bucket method didn't really work too well. I wasn't too privy to soil amendments and things at the time.
Mm.
And also there was the stress of being nomadic, you know, um, it, that was when we first got into the RV. Not having the ability to actually put stuff into the ground was really, really rough. Moving our buckets around and stuff, like for mowing, and not having any sort of place, that was incredibly difficult. When I first started mushroom growing, I had built a whole setup in a mold infested barn, and I didn't realize how difficult that was going to be. Yeah, that was, and I didn't even realize mold was there because it was in the attic. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
But that was a ton of money on that. Oh, it was pretty brutal. Let's see. The same thing happened when I started my seedlings. I didn't realize that the mold issue pretty much contaminated all of our seedlings. So that was pretty brutal. And when I started inoculating logs, I didn't realize that you had to cut the log fresh. Don't use old logs. You're gonna waste a lot of money. You got to cut them fresh.
It needs to be green.
Yeah, because
Okay.
otherwise there's competitive fungi. There's a presence of fungi already, and fungi are pretty fun in this aspect. Is Paul Stamets showed this in one of his videos, but you could take two morel, like same species, but just different genetics, say across the country or something, and you would expect that they would be harmonious to one another whenever they're planted in the same like environment or whatever. No, they will war, cannibalize, and mess with each other and whatnot.
Weird.
And yeah, and then one will triumph like pretty much over the other one, and that whole time that you're like expecting, they're going on in this subterraneous or like this invisible war that you can't see, where they're kind of knocking boots with one another. You'll put them under an agar plate, and you have say you have two yellow morels, and you're like, it's the same same species, but not the same genetic. You put them in both sides of the agar plate, and when they grow, they will create a wall, a division, and they will collide there. But then if you take, say you planted morels from last year, and then you have a sample of that and then one last year, you know what I mean? You put them into the same agar plate, well, then they recognize each other and they go, oh, hey, how's it going? And they connect. That's the whole practice of when you're doing those logs. You're making these patterns, because each one of those has the spore and it has the genetic, and as it goes in, it's in these different spots, and it takes a little time for them to radiate outward, but whenever they connect to each other, they go, oh, hey, and then they're able to really get stuff done. But if you have two different species that go in there, it creates just this turf war that will prevent you from having any fruiting for more like a longer period of time, because they're pretty much beating the crap out of each other on a mycological level. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah. Now things that have worked was myceliating my garden. So I have wine caps popping up after every rain. Wine caps have absolutely incredible rhizomorphs that are great at absorbing carbon and having that mycorrhizal exchange with like your plants. And I actually did a little bit of a study that's pretty cool. I made an allium box, so an onion or garlic box. And I planted, and I kind of created the box to where the sun would come over it and cast a shadow halfway into that allium box. So I had these plants that were on this side of it, and they were in the sun the majority of the time. And then you had these plants over here that were getting a shadow cast on them, and it was a great little control and variable. And I watched them grow for a while. It was always the shaded side that was not growing as much, and then the sun. As soon as I introduced the wine cap mushroom into that, I started noticing that the shaded side started catching up to now the slower side shade or sun portion of the box. And what ended up happening there was, I swear to God, like, was that wine cap in an attempt to bring everything almost to an equal level. It pretty much started pulling nutrients from the already nutrient rich sun side of the box and fostering it over to struggling shade side of the box. Now they all grow equal. And I swear it's from that mushroom. Yeah, I swear.
What?
I swear, man. I swear it's crazy. But
that is crazy.
Yeah. I swear they have consciousness. I mean, it's super strange, but it was almost like it tried to make everything equal and foster all things, because as it spreads its rhizomorphs and its mycelium outward, it doesn't want to have a weak side of that box. You know what I mean? It wants to thrive equally over there, so it just bonds to those root systems and then says, okay, well, I'm going to act as your brain, and I'm going to put you all at the same pace, at the same rate. And now, I swear on everything, I watched it happen, and it's crazy. So then I put all that, especially wine cap, I put all that wine cap into pretty much everything. I have a buddy who owns a tree cutting and tree trimming business, and he brought me these massive piles of hardwood, and I started throwing boiling water on them to get rid of any sort of competing mold. And I just started taking the fruiting bodies of these wine caps and I started beaming them into it. And now when you dig into those piles, you're seeing all this webbing of mycelium and stuff. So now I did this. I took like a big old bunch of that over to my mom's garden, threw it in there. Next year, she'll have wine caps. You know what I mean? And what they do is so absolutely incredible, and they're edible. They taste like cashews. They're super.
Really?
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
And they call them garden giants because they will literally, depending on how much nutrient they have or how much food or substrate they have, they will get really big. They'll get like a foot tall with a cap that's like every bit of 8 inches from side to side. They'll get really, really big, but they pop up, I swear, overnight. You'll see them. They're about this big. The next day they're like, which is often the case with the fungal world, but they're pretty amazing. Other methods I've done, I'm just now doing the Three Sisters method, doing a lot of trellising, vertical gardening, which saves you a lot of space. And then also one thing I can suggest is studying companion planting, making sure that what you're planting doesn't hinder or hurt whatever else you're planting next to it. Like nightshades, for example, are notorious for causing root issues that could spread to your other crops, stunt crops, or kill other crops. Companion planting is 100% crazy. And that's another thing about my grandma. She has no idea. If I were to look at her and say, oh yeah, companion planting, she'd go, what the hell are you talking about? But then she would be sitting there walking through her garden with me and be like, oh, well, X grows really perfectly next to Y. And it's just from patient observance, observance of it, which is like just
a more passive version. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah. And then let's see, any other methods? Oh, air layering. Air layering is something to get into. If you want an orchard, I highly suggest hopping on Facebook, putting it out there. Hey, does anyone have any peach trees? Does anyone have any apple trees? Does anyone have any, elderberry or anything like that? And learn air layering, because it's a quick and easy way to essentially trick the genetics of whatever it is that, so you're building an orchard, you trick the genetics. What's great about that is that the immune system is already built in to that tree or that shrub. So whenever you get your root system off of it and you cut it off, that tree is convinced that it is already the age of the mother tree. It's already got all this time and experience, and it's got the immune system, which is super important, the resiliency, that you can use, and you can build an orchard relatively quick if you're good at networking. You know what I mean?
Right.
And Yeah, and also just plant propagation. What plants are really, really easy to take cuttings of, and healthy cuttings, and be able to, off of one blueberry bush, you could probably get 8 by next year. And granted, there's fruiting time and everything, but the art of patience, especially in this, in the next 5 years, you could have a field of blueberries. You know what I mean? Like you could 100% do that. um it's taking stuff that only requires you reading. That's the only requirement. Like you can pull over on the side of the road when you spot like an elderberry that's on some vacant abandoned property, and you could air layer it, and then you could bring it to your place. You could do that. That's not outside of this realm of possibility. Within 5 years, if you put your effort and you put your nose to that grindstone, you can have a food forest that in the back of your mind will make you feel so alleviated of all of the stress and shit in this world. Because what ends up happening is the primordial instinct that we all have is that if we can't go to that grocery store, what the hell are we going to do? It's over. You know what I mean? Like that's in my opinion where this is heading in a fast way. Whenever you realize winter, spring, summer, fall, you have created the capacity for you to go outside with your little basket and feed yourself every day between your livestock and what you can forage, the fungal world. Like you no longer have this inherent stressor in the back of your brain that you're going to be among the mini in a bread line. You know what I mean? Like so
Right.
I highly recommend doing that. And I highly recommend doing it with native species. Native species. Don't do the Morris, alba. Do the Morris rubra. Do the natural here at home, red mulberry tree, not the white. Make your property an Eden of what was supposed to be here, what is natural, what truly benefits your own home ecosystem, and therefore, you and the world around you, the bees around you, do that instead. But I completely lost track of where I was going. I think I was on methods that worked. I remember that
Yes.
question you had preloaded. But and that learn to drive a stick shift, like learn to drive a stick, uh, and root your money and assets. Because I have a feeling that unless we're all gold owners in the near future, then all we're going to have is our things, and those things better be able to manipulate land. Best be able to feed you and your own, and they best be able to defend. So that's another method that's worked. Buying smart, things that help your mission, and having a stockpile of seeds.
The other stockpile,
Yeah,
bullets,
yeah. Always collect your
seeds.
seeds. Yeah. Whenever you have that tomato, that big ripe boy, and you're like, this is the best tomato I've ever seen or had, get the seeds from it. Yeah.
It's a good point. I've
Yeah,
got,
yeah.
if you have time, I have 3 more questions.
Yeah, let's roll. Let's go.
All right. So, what's been the biggest challenge in homesteading that you faced?
Oh man. Time usage. Time usage and too many irons in the fire. You know. Um, you get excited, especially like whenever you see results, um, and you're wanting to like add more, and sometimes you're not ready. You're not ready, and you're not realizing like the weight or the maintenance of something. Um, like that's like I've postponed converting this old Texaco shipping container into my mushroom lab for now, because it's going to dominate my schedule. It's going to take over
True.
absolutely everything. So being wise to time management, I would say, is the hardest thing with homesteading. um, I think that's why back in the day, it was just encouraged to have as many children as possible. Like why you see families with 20 children. You know, it was, I love these kids, but they also need to have a pickaxe in their hand. You know, like just understand what you are capable of being able to do, and don't overburden yourself, because whenever one project lacks, it makes the other projects fall in line and do the same thing. So that's what I would say is my biggest challenge when it comes to it. Maintaining that stride and being able to keep things done. You always have your goals set seasonally, especially, and when you fall short of them, it makes the next season harder. So make manageable goals that you're capable of accomplishing, both for, you know, your homestead productivity and also your mental health.
Sure. Yeah, you had mentioned, you know, everything needs to get done, right? And so like, and you brought up the rock wall. Well, I did not want to finish that. I had 10 other things I would rather do. And I was honestly so sick of just filming like moving rocks week after week
Yeah.
after week after week. I'm like, I don't even want to do this. I don't even care. Like, I'm sure everybody else doesn't even care to watch about moving rocks. I'm like, I just gotta get this done so I can move on to something else. And I'm glad I just like pushed through and just got it done. Now I can actually do something else and not have like, hey, you got to finish that. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that stuff takes a pretty deep presence in your mind. You know, like right now I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, man, I got to go water the worm farm. Like, you forgot about the worm farm. Or like,
oh no.
you know, like I've got to, you know, but yeah, once you get it down, I think, to a system, and, you know, making lists is super helpful. You know, that's one of the things with my lady, is that she's great about putting things up on drywall, you know, or not drywall, dry erase. So, you know, on my way out the door, I'm like, oh yeah. So she's recording me pretty much rambling and being like, oh, I gotta do this and I gotta do that, and she's putting that up there. So as I'm walking out the door, I'm like, oh yeah, you know, which is super helpful. But I'm just about to the point now to where I've caught up to all the irons, and now I'm like juggling them. I'm doing tricks with
Nice.
them, you know, like, yeah. But I think that's the goal with any sort of homesteader is eventually, you know, either your children are there to help you and build off of it and everything, or you're making such an abundance that you're able to create a community from your hard work, or, you know, you're able to employ other people to help you with productivity, you know,
What
which is
would
a
you
big,
say is the is the big dream?
that's a dream of mine. Yeah. Yeah. All my
Is
uncles retired.
another business for you?
Uh, yeah, I think so. More, it wouldn't necessarily be mostly about the business. It would be the fact that I could have my Uncle Scotty working for me. I could have like, I could be employing my family. I could release my poor old gray-haired daddy from that trucker job and give him a job pruning rose bushes. You know, that would be ideal. You know, I think that would, because we all of us work and click so well together that I think, come on, Crow. I think I think having all of us there together, you know, I'm a big believer that plants have empathy and they have, you know, like emotions and things themselves. You know, I believe that we would have a high capacity farm just based off the love that we radiated out as a family working together. But as of right now, it ain't paying anybody's bills but mine. So, you know,
Hey, that's a
I got,
solid start.
yeah. Well, whenever these other, what is it, 15 chickens roll in, and I double my egg production, you know, and you know, that's how it goes. You know, for a while it was just us sitting here, you know, water glassing eggs, you know, and dehydrating scrambled eggs, and then it was like, wow, we can't keep up with it. Let's sell the eggs, and then it's like, well, shit, another 15 more chickens. Like, well, you know, that's how homesteading works. I bet you anybody watching this is sitting there like, oh yeah, I started with 5, you know, and now they look outside and it's just an ocean of chickens,
Yeah,
you know, more than they even know. Yeah, yeah,
that's how it starts. What would
yeah.
you say the part about homesteading is?
The best part, Um,
Mm-hmm.
I would honestly say the almost clairvoyance that you get of like your future and your capacity and your strength as a human being. We haven't had running water here for a long time. We import like our water. You know, we've had to create systems for water. Um, you know, and in order to achieve like I no longer take baths in chlorine water. I take baths in spring water. You know, you have a higher resonance for the important things. um, you feel an awful lot better because anybody who goes, it doesn't matter who you are. You know, a lot of people are like, oh, well, you know, junk food or whatever, like the impact it has on your physique or whatever. No, no, no. It's the impact it has on your brain. It's the impact it has on your noodle, your capacity to think and care for yourself. You know, anytime someone picks up a bag of Cheetos and eats it, and they're sitting there with their Cheeto dusty fingers and everything, and it's like stained their bed sheets and stuff, and they wake up and they go, "Oh, I can't believe I ate that," or whatever. Or even if, you know, we all know it's terrible. We all know McDonald's is killing millions of Americans with obesity every year, but we still do it. We still do it. Why? Because I mean, which is the biggest joke, the organic aisles and stuff, like you should look up the terminology and the clever wordplay that they put into making something organic or free range. You know what I mean? Like, I think free range, if you watch, there's a great documentary, Super Size Me 2 Holy Chicken, I believe is what it is. The same guy that did Super Size Me, where he only ate fast food for
Yeah.
like his health declined to such a crazy degree. He went on his second documentary. I think it's called Holy Chicken, Super Size Me Too. And he went into the nitty gritty details of what it takes to have your farm registered as a free range farm. And industry has made it to where you only have to be able to like let them walk, I think 3 to 9 feet out of their enclosure. And oftentimes these enclosures are way cooler and nicer, like on inside climate wise, so they don't even go outside. But you start looking into just the absolute train wreck that makes us tunnel in and go, oh, it's organic. You know, that word is bought, paid for. It's
Right.
garbage. Doesn't work. You know, so but then you go and you try to eat like that, you don't realize that, you know, you look at it, you go, oh, it's organic, well, it's good, but you don't read the ingredients. You don't see that there's all these dyes and there's all these preservatives and all this stuff, you know, like you're you're killing yourself 100%. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And but the thing is, the problem, we all know it. That's the problem. It is sacrilegious to yourself almost. Like if you are your holy temple in your body, you know, is it's your vessel for your soul, and you're actively poisoning it, and your mentality is like, oh well, tomorrow I'll eat healthy, or you know, nah, man. It's the best part about homesteading is the liberation of mind and body, you know, knowing that your hands tethered the reality of that plant out of the soil and you created it. And like, I mean, the joy of knowing that you avoided the billionaire snare, you know, the same guy that's sitting there having planes come in and spray all these tomatoes and all this stuff, they still have the audacity to slap an organic sticker on, you know, like we're avoiding it. We 100% avoid it. And there's a part of you that almost becomes like an elitist mindset where you're just like, you know what, like I don't dip my toe into that world anymore. You know, if I get hungry, I'm popping a 2-year-old can of chili that I studied to learn how to do it right, and I'm eating that deer pup from 2 years ago, and I'm stockpiling the whole time too. You know what I mean? Like that's a whole different realm and reality of mental health. And it, you know, comes with hard work, which adds to mental health. You know, you just, that's the best part. That's the 100% best part of homesteading, along with the knowledge it brings and the ability to hand it down or show other people, because it's, I mean, it's the most, in my opinion, addictive thing. The best thing to be addicted to is that hard work and that capacity to heal and love and nurture yourself. And then you help other people get into that too. And that's why I do it. That's why I do what I do on TikTok. And it's because I have personally seen people pull themselves up out of it designed, 100% designed, intentional, destructive, like convenience that is given to each and every one of us, that, hey, go home, like, you know, or go work yourself to death. You work all week until your weekend, you know, come home, watch your TV programming, you know what I mean? Eat your slop, you know, and then you can retire after 65 years of putting, you know, that iron in the fire for us while we're out, you know. Nah, if you want to bring down a crooked, corrupt crapshoot of an empire that is profiteering off of all of our suffering, what you do is you starve it. And you starve it by eating well yourself. You know what I mean?
I love that. I love that so much. I actually forgot the original question. That I was just like along for the ride, and I was like, "Yeah, this is great. Love
Always
this."
The benefit of homesteading and the best part about it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then you almost like brought it right into the next question was what would you tell people that want to get started?
Get ready for some hard work. Get ready for some.
That's a good tip.
Yeah, but know that every time you do something, you don't cut corners, and you know, you're efficient, you're smart about it. Well, old dad used to say, and still does, measure twice, cut once. Do your research, study. You know, like really, really think about what it is you're doing, because every time you end up doing something, you devote that hard work to it. You can almost like, I'll give you just like a small chain of events. You know, okay, so I get chickens. I give the chickens what they want. The chickens go out. They eat well. They eat healthy. They produce an egg for me. I eat that egg. Okay, nom. Now I have eggshell. I take eggshell, dry eggshell out, add eggshell to garden. You know, it builds on itself. But that seed that you plant is the first. You know, it's got to be the very big prospect of what it is you're going to be doing. You're not, you know, like you have to surrender yourself to the fact that you're going to be working 12 to 14-hour days at the beginning, because that system that you're building with that eggshell and with that chicken and with your worm farm, and when like it takes a minute for all those cylinders to fire, you know what I mean, and to benefit you, it is labor intensive. There's a lot of manipulating land or structure building that you have to have. I mean, I just went through a crazy war with raccoons. I was getting chickens picked off left and right.
Oh
In my
no.
pajamas at 4 o'clock in the morning, walking around like a sentry with my headlamp, and you know, and I was seeing where they were getting in. I saw the little buggers crawling in, and I'm spotlighting them, and I'm like, there they are. And the next day, you know, I've got to go and make that all to where they can't get in. But I was up from 2 a.m. to 5 o'clock in the morning. I got to wake up and I got to take care of the animals still. And then I got to go and I got to repair all that, man. That's a day. That's a day, man, you know, and taking care of like everything you got. If you're trying to get into it, I recommend maybe doing some stretching, some deep breathing, you know, maybe a little light calisthenic, you know, get yourself feeling good, eat well for a few weeks, and then ask yourself, if you feel any better, can I do this with a little bit healthier of a mind? Because what you expect it's going to be is not rainbows and puppies. It's going to be brutal for that first little bit, until you see it start to hit and connect, whenever everything's feeding everything else. You know, whenever your pepper plants are now the anti-parasitics that go into your chickens' bellies, you start seeing all of it. But it came with extreme consciousness and work. But also don't let that scare you out of it. You can start small. You can, like what we did, like with the RV and everything, like we got ourselves financially free, essentially, before we just, we didn't want to rent a place or anything like that. We didn't, we limited all of the export of our finances. We limited it down, and then we had more time, to address a lot of these things, and, just be very calculated with it, and know that those calculations can get all messed up. Like they really can, but stick with it if it's really what you want. It's such an endorphin rush, and it's such a high to be able to take care of yourself and your family, and know that, you haven't been, essentially abused by a system that doesn't care about you. And I think that's baseline what homesteading is. Anybody who's self-reliant, if you are self-reliant, then what essentially you're doing is giving the biggest FU, family-friendly middle finger, to the system, and saying, I don't trust you anymore, and you're not going to have dominion with me and my family. I'm going to pay my stuff up. I'm going to pay my taxes. I'll pay my property taxes. I'll be straight and laced and buttoned up, but you're going to stay the heck away from me and my family, and I'm going to create this mindset within my family that has this inherent, and eventually it'll catch up, it'll spread, and then you'll be the ones eating your own garbage.
That's fantastic. Was there
Yeah.
was there anything else that you wanted to talk about, or anything that we missed? I want to be respectful of your time also, so.
Oh no, I mean, I kind of set a little bit of time aside today for this, because I appreciate people like you, and and what you're doing, and giving people a platform and a voice to be able to vocalize such things, and I hope I resonated with other people, and I hope that, other homesteaders out there and stuff, like are with me on this mission, or hearing me here, and I'd love to hear other people's. I'm going to start tuning into your channel. I'm going to get the details and stuff of all this. Yeah, absolutely. And helping you with that. That's something I try to do on my channel. I try to help people either get their products out there or their knowledge out there, charitable events, things like that. And also, most importantly, knowledge. Knowledge is 100% power. And, I've literally have gotten to the point to where I'm successful on TikTok because I read, because I study. There's people out there who, and then there's people out there who turn the page of a book, and I find it pretty hilarious that I've been capable of doing that. So if you are listening to this and everything, and this is your first time hearing me or anything, I run a channel on TikTok called Deadeye Two Tongues, where I essentially adopt new methods of growing or plant propagation, study of fungi, plant ID, foraging, and things of that nature, and also testing other people's theories. I'm now doing electromagnetic gardening, and all sorts of stuff. I'm making as good. Yeah, which is something I forgot to mention. I did an update on it. I do have concrete evidence that electromagnetic gardening has worked as of today. I put that on my story, which is crazy, but it's hard to do videos like that. Like, I can't just go and set it all up and be like, let's see if it works. Like, those are the long videos of, it's like 2 months later, you have that saved in your drafts,
Scroll.
Yeah. But yeah, that's something. If you want to come with me on my mission to improve my life quality and try to help other people improve their life quality, that's something I would say. Follow me on there, and I'm moving to YouTube too. Well, not necessarily moving. I'm doing that, coincidingly. So, and as of right now, I'm just capable of putting my TikToks as almost a backup bank onto YouTube, because I am trying to get my $900 camera to be able to start doing really, really nice YouTube videos. But I know I'll get there. because of all of the above of what I just said.
Right.
So
Yeah, man.
yeah. Just nose to the grindstone it, man. And if you really want to do this, yeah, join some Facebook forums and some online groups and stuff where they share knowledge. Find yourself nose deep in a really good book. More than likely that you figured out was a really good book because of online forums. Yeah, and don't waste any time in getting right to being healthy, man.
Well, Dad, I really appreciate your time, and this has been a lot of fun, man. We're definitely going to stay in touch. I don't know. I've got so many more questions, and just looking forward to like seeing more like of your your progression. So this has been awesome.
Man, yeah, and so am I, man. So am I. I legitimately love waking up every day, which is like something so. If you knew me 6 years ago, whenever I was laying in a hospital bed, dealing with all of my trauma and everything that had happened to me, there was a dark period of my life whenever I was like, nah, it's too much, and now where I'm sitting at is just like, I'm bulletproof, man. You know what I mean?
Well, you were just you just had something like fixed too, right? Like you had to go back in.
Yeah, I had the third reconstruction of my orbital socket, because there was so much damage done to my left eye that they removed it, and then they had to. At first, they put a piece of organic matter, being coral, on the inside of my eye socket, and they attached my retinal muscles to it to spin that piece of coral so I could wear a prosthetic and it would look like the prosthetic moved. But there was so much extensive trauma done to it that there wasn't a lot for that coral to be gripped onto with. So they had yet again go in and they removed that ball of coral, and they actually took a big chunk of my hip and stuck my own skin into my eye socket and grafted it. So now that's healing. It's been an ongoing process. 6 years, man. 6 years of I mean, having to fight depression. 6 years of like knowing that this is taking a physical toll on me. But I honestly could not be happier for the experience, because I truly do believe that what I got from the Almighty and from my personal closeness, about as close as I feel like you can get to the other side, opened my eye to so much and whipped my brain out of that depression and got me out of feeling self-loathing, and instead put me into hyperdrive for the appreciation and everything, for the pretty much consequential gift of what happened to me. You know what I mean? I don't know a lot of people nearly died, but I can tell you the majority of people who did, that I do know, have a pretty crazy existential like understanding of things that a lot of people can't even whisper into reality, because it is a really, really crazy life to live after you have nearly lost it. You know what I mean?
I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you made it.
It either makes you wake up and smell those roses and be like, wow, this is beautiful, or it makes you walk right past them on your way to the liquor store. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the yeah. So I'm smelling the roses, man.
Good.
Every day.
You're planting them too.
Yeah. Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
Well, I'll let you go. Let you water your worm farm. Don't forget about that. And we'll definitely keep in touch.
I appreciate the reminder. Hey man, thank you. And yes, send me a link to this, man. I'd love to be able to show my 400,000 followers everything we discussed, and I'd like to be able to listen back to it too. You're a really charming dude. Like, I appreciate
Thanks.
I appreciate you letting me rant. I think I have a tendency to do that, and this is not even nearly as bad as it could have been. Or as good as it could have been, I guess, depending on how you look at it. But I'd like to hear it back, and I'd like to show other people, because I believe the questions you're asking were core questions that I think was great to be reminded today that I needed to ask myself. So
Sure. Yeah, can do. Sounds good. I'll send you a link, and yeah, we'll definitely keep in touch. So
absolutely.
all right.
I am Matt DeRozier of Farm Hop Life. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and visit farmhoplife.com.
Inside of the city, the people are crazy, out of their minds, they ain't got a clue. We gone away, headed west for Montana, left family and friends, all I got now is you. We both got new jobs, a house and a homestead, thinking this was the life, all that there'd be. After our firstborn, you had to stay home. That's when the work got in the way for me. Well, I started Farm Hop Life. We'll come to your farm to help and to wander. Me and the family, a truck and an RV. Send us a message and